Welcome to the session on open G2P transfers. So this session is basically to learn comprehensive insights from on-ground experiences. Through this panel discussion, we will learn from experts about how ID has been applied in delivering social assistance and improving financial inclusion, its impacts and potentials for further use. This panel will be moderated by Niharika Betkerur. She is our policy and research lead at Open G2P. I wholeheartedly welcome Niharika on the stage, please. She'll be introducing our panelists.
So good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's panel discussion, which is titled G2P Transfers, Comprehensive Insights from On-Ground Experiences. So in keeping with the conversations we had earlier this morning, Dr. Tina George set up a very good framework for us in terms of what is the chain in social benefit delivery and where technology can come in. She also gave a very live example of the Novisi program in Togo, which utilized very simple tools like USSD to identify beneficiaries very quickly and give them emergency cash transfers during COVID. Then we also learned about one such solution, OpenG2P, whom I represent, which is an open source social benefit delivery platform and has various modules which can be used to make this a reality. And in today's panel, we will delve a little bit deeper and hear from experts who have actually leveraged ID for social protection and financial inclusion. So as the volume of G2P transfers across the world increases, there is a compelling need to deliver these transfers in a timely and inclusive fashion. Digital G2P systems can help with this, provided there is a sound foundation of unique identity and context-appropriate solutions. So for today's panel, as I said, we have two experts who have a wealth of experience in both DPI as well as social protection, who in our conversation today will share their insights from driving these digital transformation projects on the ground. So closest to me is Sam Muradzikwa. He is the Chief of Social Policy and Social Protection at UNICEF Ethiopia, a position he has held since Jan 2021. Between 2018 and 2020, he was Chief of Social Policy and Research at UNICEF Zambia, and before that at UNICEF Zimbabwe. So he comes, of course, with a wealth of experience from different contexts. He joined UNICEF in 2012 after working for 5 years at the Development Bank of Southern Africa, where he held the post of Chief Economist and Africa Strategist. And next to him is Mr. Ibrahim Mama. He is the UNCDF Ethiopia Country Coordinator and a DPI Specialist for Eastern and South Africa Regional Hub for UNCDF. He leads the Inclusive Digital Economies portfolio. Ibrahim has been supporting the implementation of the Ethiopian National ID program during his role so far as a senior project manager at the UN Economic Commission for Africa. He has worked as a consultant on digital transformation and adoption of digital ID in general. So I thank them for agreeing to be here today and share their valuable insights. So please give them a warm welcome. Great, so let's get into it. Firstly, I think there are some specific projects that you both would like to talk about. Sam, your work in leveraging FIDA ID for humanitarian cash transfer program. And Ibrahim, in the Somali region, you have tried similar things to bring refugee populations into the social protection network. So yes, I think all of us would like to know first, how did you leverage ID and other digital solutions to reach the most vulnerable populations with humanitarian assistance and financial inclusion? And this question is for both of you, so we'd like to hear.
Thank you very much, Niharika, and good afternoon, good morning to the colleagues. Firstly, it's a pleasure, it's a privilege to be here and a pleasure to share some of the experiences that we have as UNICEF been are able to share based on our work with the National ID program and the use of the digital ID to improve program quality of our humanitarian intervention in social protection. And by that, what do we mean? So we have a very large humanitarian cash transfer program that has been operating to augment or to supplement the existing PSMP, which is the Productive Safety Net program in Ethiopia. And our humanitarian cash program has been targeted towards displaced populations. Populations displaced because of conflict, droughts, floods, right? So, and basically these are high-risk populations when it comes to, in terms of, for instance, financial inclusion, but also these are populations that are very desperate. So what we first noticed when we were doing this program, before we even went and engaged with the digital ID and this, was that a lot of our beneficiaries were becoming wholly dependent on the humanitarian cash program, right? We would go and save lives because they're displaced, and after a couple of months, they need to be saved again and again, and we were looking and asking ourselves, how are we going to build more resilience amongst the population so that they don't need us next time. They can build their own approach. We started discussing with communities, populations. One thing that became apparent was what is preventing them were small things like, oh, I don't have an ID, or my Kebele ID got destroyed while we were fleeing the conflict, and now I'm in another region and I can't get an ID in this new region that I'm in, or that I am in a camp, but I can't enter into any contracts to do work or to open bank account or anything because I don't have an ID. Either it's not accepted in this region or in this place, or it got lost, and so forth and so on. So it was the feedback was very, was very telling. So we had then we heard that there was already a program led by the government of Ethiopia to roll out digital ID. And that's where our engagement with the program began. And importantly, we then understood and learned that the banks, some of the banks already are accredited providers of digital ID through the training they have received by the National ID program. So we engaged one of the banks as a pilot to say, okay, let's engage this bank, let's understand exactly how we can respond to the concerns that the communities were raising, but also to address the concerns that we ourselves were raising around building more resilience amongst the communities. And so we initiated a pilot program where, with that bank, we decided we're going to do the one round of humanitarian cash transfers, right? So just giving money to displaced populations through this bank. But the second round of transfers, right, we want that to be now more of people demanding microfinance or loans to support their starting off of a business or livelihood support. We also said that before we give anyone cash now, they must be registered on the digital ID. Right? So now we have a situation. So in the pilots, so the first thing was everybody's registered on digital ID. Second, they have bank accounts opened. Third, they get a humanitarian cash transfer into their accounts. The bank then monitors their spending habits and develops a credit history scoring for those who have not had one previously, right? And in the second round, in the second round where we would normally give a second humanitarian cash payment, we didn't have to do it anymore. Now people were with the bank were now going and getting these short-term, low-cost, uncollateralized loans, right? Uncollateralized loans, right? And the bank had more comfort because of this digital ID and things like this. So this is, and what we have seen, and this is a pilot that started last year, and what we have seen is the growth in the number of these displaced populations who are accessing microfinancing, right? And they're opening up small businesses like petty trading, coffee house, shoe shining. Some of them are in camps and are operating small businesses inside the IDP camps. Some are outside in the host communities, right? But they no longer need us as UNICEF to come back and support them when, during when they suffer from this shock. Right? So, and what we are realizing also, the second point is that through this approach, we are finding some of the beneficiaries or the clients, who are displaced and whom we have been supporting. They are now able to enter into contracts, for example. So we were told that people who are in the camps, they could not do any work. Remember, these are Ethiopians, right? In Ethiopia, in an IDP camp, right? I'm not even talking about refugees. I'll leave that to my brother here. Ethiopians who are in one region to another are not allowed to, are being told, oh, you must stay in your camp because you don't have an ID. You can't enter into contract with anybody, like to look after goats or cattle, novel things like this. Now with this digital ID, what you have is the host communities in some of these areas are bringing their livestock to the people in the camp and entering into contracts to say, can you look after my livestock, fatten it, and when it gives birth, you'll have the first baby goat, calf, I think it's called, and things like this. So you're finding, it's a very novel example, but it is real, as in it's part of the building of resilience and of the strength of reducing dependency on a humanitarian actor to come and support you in the time of trouble. My last point before I stop for now is that this is not to say that everyone who's displaced, right, is able to access a loan. Of course not, right? What it does say is that even if 30 or 40% of those who previously were getting, if you want to call it, a handout, right, are no longer needing it, it means that we are able to bring an additional 30% onto the program in the next round. So whereas previously our money was being stretched to try and cover as many displaced populations, now we are able to, and I don't want to use the term graduate because it's a very, it's a loaded term, but basically through this inclusion, which is on the back of the digital ID, we are able to wean certain groups who are qualifying for loans and are into livelihoods out of the program, freeing up space and resources for additional people who are left out because we don't have enough money to cover everybody to now come onto the program. So let me stop here, and I know that we can discuss more later, but thank you.
Thank you. So Ibrahim, I think the additional layer of complexity here for you is refugee populations. How did you deal with that, and how did ID play a role?
Okay. So I'd like to bring a different perspective to it. And it has to do with the nature of what UNCDF does. So UNCDF, the Inclusive Digital Economy Portfolio, works in terms of advancing what we call the key pillars for inclusive digital economies to happen, which is skills, infrastructure, innovation, and policy. Now, in terms of innovation, one of the challenges that Sam was facing, we look at it from service providers' perspective. And these are the financial institutions. The financial institutions which need to be there and take the risk to actually be able to produce, develop, curate products and services curated directly for such population groups, which does not exist. Yeah? So add on to that the need for connectivity, connection, and technology. So what we do is we actually work with these financial institutions as part of our portfolio in providing them with financial and technical support to innovate. But to do that, whatever amount of product they innovate, when they hit the ground, they face a challenge as a result of lack of key DPIs, and ID comes in there as a central point. So with the work that we do with WFP, one of the biggest challenges there was service providers and financial institutions clearly and continuously identification, ID, as a major challenge for them to be able to provide the service. And when they do, because there's lack of digitally verifiable ID, linked with a service-giving platform, linked with a database platform, that they usually face challenges of double dipping, which I'm sure some of you guys have faced as well, ghost beneficiaries, double dipping, and at sometimes really misuse of support that has been intended for a different population group. So we believe ID is central, and we would like to enable the financial institutions to take the risk. But there's two approaches here. The first one is providing these financial institutions with the credit risk guarantee and with the financial grant for them to innovate. new products. But secondly, also, for them to innovate in terms of availing services at the last mile. So these are your agent bank models. These are your agency models, which would have otherwise not made sense to have an agent structure at that level, at that service point. So you have to provide incentive for these financial institutions to innovate and have these agents available at the last mile. Although Tina said this morning they are the first mile, not the last mile. So we focus on these financial institutions and enable their capacity, but also really come in with a financial guarantee for them to actually come up with these services at the last mile. But continuously, even if they innovate, as I was saying earlier, identification and other digital public infrastructures continuously feature as a major hindrance to the process. One other aspect of this is related to the use of ID is exchange of data. Yeah, maybe we'll come to that in detail, but we find that even if they use certain kind of ID, what they prefer to do, and when we have seen it, and this also has to do with some of the agencies that we work with, all the agencies that are trying to provide service for refugees and internally displaced persons, try to come up with their own specific organizational IDs. These IDs don't read with each other. They're not interoperable with each other. So it's very difficult to consolidate and interoperable these ID systems, thereby they become redundant with one another. We have faced these challenges. So of late, we're understanding the fact that we not only have to work with the financial institutions, but also internally within the UN system and other service providers, including the government, to have a streamlined approach towards identification.
Thank you so much for those introductory remarks. So let's illustrate what you have been doing with a couple of on-ground examples and what benefits and improvements while adopting these processes have you seen? How have things changed on the ground? And the second part to that, of course, is the challenges. I think you've touched upon it very briefly. But I think as technologists here, we would also like to contribute and alleviate some of these challenges. So if there is anything from that perspective and point of view, what are some of the inclusive related solutions that you have been embarking upon? And if we can learn from that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my brother Ibrahim has made an important point here on the issues of what's happening on the ground. 2 points. So I think the first one is, again, I was talking about improvement program quality. He's mentioned double dipping. This is a big problem, right? But it is alleviated by the digital ID. And let me give you an example how. So when you're looking at IDP camps, right? Well, before we came with digital ID, we had situations where, we had two kinds of situations. One where you would go into an IDP camp and you would ask for Muhammad Ali, and there are 10 of them, right? All called Muhammad Ali, legitimately, all called Muhammad Ali, right? So which one is your beneficiary? The struggle, and then say you are the one, you're not the one, and it was a nightmare. Secondly, especially in regions where you had multiple camps, you could have camp hopping. Right? Yeah. So the person has come and registered in this camp as Muhammad Ali, goes to register in another camp as Muhammad Ali Usman, and so forth and so on and so on. And there was no way actually to track that, okay, because they've got different Kabila IDs, different, so again, this digital ID with a unique number, right, removes that problem. So now you're looking for a number, right? And so it's, right, and everybody has their number, and so we started to see less, if you want, of this double dipping, less of the leakages. Very important in terms of the quality of program, and especially in the context here where we had a lot of issues in Ethiopia around aid diversion at some stage last year, if you recall. So it was really important for us to look at how to improve program quality, how to improve risk management of programs, and so this was critical. As mentioned in terms of I really mentioned the multiple benefits that we are seeing and hearing from the beneficiaries on the ground about their dignity of not waiting to get a handout and their ability to now engage directly with the financial institution, with communities to open contracts, with gainful employment opportunities. But there are challenges. So let me just highlight some of the challenges that we faced in this process. I think what was very apparent to us it is apparent now, and I think it's acceptable, is that the readiness for scalability of the digital ID, right, was still quite nascent at the time. Still is. I mean, right? I mean, there's very few biometric kits in the country. There's still, right? I mean, there's massive efforts by the ID program to really drive, but it's, it's a very resource-intensive program, and so the readiness to actually scale up quickly has been a big challenge, right? So, for example, specific example, each registration kit registers about 50 people a day maximum, right? One kit, 50 people. Whereas previously we were doing registration without digital ID, we were able to register 2,000 people a day, right? Now, with one kit, it's 50 people. And in our case, we're actually lucky, thanks to the ID program, who gave the bank, we're working with additional kits, right? So we had 6 kits, and so we could only do a maximum of 300 registrations a day, right? So you see, it's a real big constraint. It means that to reach the 7,000 that we needed to do, it took us a month, right? So that's challenge number 1. I mean, it's a challenge, but we wanted the quality and the avoidance of duplication and, double dipping and things like this, right? So there was a trade-off between you want quality, takes time. But I believe there are efforts underway to make sure that there are more kits available, that registration can be more quicker, and in the future, I think this problem will go away eventually. Second, a challenge, right, is the I think there are, we've had challenges in terms of inclusion. So, so when we look at, again, on the ground, we can see that people with disability, for example, right, who are generally not, who are less likely to be served by the financial institution, largely because of stigma issues and others, that even when we are trying to address this issue and support them, there's still a lot of issues of on their ID, on their capturing of various biometrics and things like this. But again, it's not an insurmountable problem. I think it's more of just being more purposeful, to include people and children with disability. And then the final one is, as a challenge is, I think it's a great platform, digital ID, but it has much more capacity. It has capacity to do much more, and much more integration with other systems that exist in the country, right? Other services that are provided. For example, things like birth registration, right? Things like access to healthcare, community-based health insurance. So the potential, and which is not yet being fully realized and tapped into, is there for better integration with other systems and other services, so as to ensure better access by the population.
Yep.
Same question.
Yeah, same question. But Sam, if I look at it from a different perspective again, so you're talking about the national ID, right, Sam? Sorry, Sam. So you're talking about FIDA, the national ID, right? And its application at this point in time. So and based on a practical example that we've tried to look at on the ground, we found out that ID by itself does not solve all the problems. Rather, it magnifies the problems that exist, unless and otherwise it is made to be integrated with other functional services. FIDA by design is made to be a foundational service. But the need for functional services is further magnified now, the more you expand the implementation of the ID system, such as the financial services. Now, although the acceptability of the FIDA ID by the financial services is there, the actual transaction and business and engagement data that you collect is not made to be integratable, is not made to be interoperable. So this is creating a challenge whereby, as you know very well, Ethiopia has allowed refugees from other countries residing in Ethiopia has accorded them legally the right to engage in gainful employment, yeah? And this is for refugees from Somalia, South Sudan, you have from Eritrea, across the board, which we're hosting in the country. Now the challenge is that these individuals and these beneficiaries need a better access of financial services more than consumption level financial capability. So these are businesses, these are small scale businesses that Sam was talking about. And the biggest challenge is that they're not credit worthy. There's no mechanism that builds their creditworthiness. They don't have a traceable financial performance. This is mainly because they don't have interaction. It's not because they don't have interaction with financial institutions. They do. But the interaction they have with different financial institutions are really fragmented. There's no platform that brings together to provide comprehensive information about an individual's financial performance. And this is the reason why we're really keenly looking at Open G2P. And this has to do with the actual interactions that these refugees have also in terms of benefit that they receive from the government, interactions that they engage with the financial institutions. So looking at a common platform where data could actually be exchanged. At this point in time, you can't. And there is also a major point of privacy and data protection, which is a really critical part when it comes to last mile beneficiaries. So this challenge persists until there is a governing law at country level, until there is a common platform and interoperability between the different systems, including ID by itself.
So we have made a start with ID, but its future, its potential is truly unlocked when it starts getting used and when there is data interoperability and we have more verifiable information about people. Yeah, point taken. So I have 5 minutes before the audience jumps in. So in very short, what future possibilities are you excited about in your specific sectors? And yeah, I think generally what should governments and other humanitarian agencies look out for in terms of digital innovation and how they can utilize all of these things we spoke about?
Thank you. No, as Ibrahim has said, I think it's a journey, right? And I think there's still a lot that needs to be done, to continuously, strengthen and support the developments of this digital ID and the associated benefits that it brings about. But from our side, we intend to, because we've used this as UNICEF in social protection as the pilot, right? But we have much bigger programs in health, nutrition, education, right? And so in child protection and water and sanitation. So our plans are to now look at how we can now, from the lessons we've learned from what we've done over the past 8 to 10 months, is to now look at how to transpose those learnings into the other sectors to encourage also more registrations, but also to follow that kind of program improvement, and to avoid some of the challenges with that as humanitarian and development actors we face, we face at the moment. Within the social protection itself, we are now looking at scaling up and linkages with the national social protection system. So already, the national social protection system, as represented by the Productive Safety Net program, is already also registering beneficiaries on the program and on the digital ID, registering digital ID. And I think it's a priority sector that has been identified for to reach all 8 million beneficiaries who currently do public works and are permanent direct support under the PSMP program. And we tend to now spread and engage with other banks. Remember, in this pilot, we worked with one bank, right, to actually test and see and understand and learn. What we want to then now do is open up and work with other banks in other regions. Because remember, again, this was only done in Oromia region as the pilot. We now want to look at other regions with other banks, working closely with the NIDP program and other sections to ensure maximum integration and benefits of and use and benefit of the digital ID. I just want to encourage development and humanitarian actors and I know many are already. We know this. They already are in the process of engaging. It's not an easy journey because of the challenges that have been pointed out, but it's a relevant, very relevant journey and timely at this point. Thank you.
I mean, for us, it has somehow allowed us to have a relook at our portfolio. not just at country level, but at regional level in Eastern and Southern Africa. The very fact that our experience with WFP in Somali region has revealed the challenges in terms of interoperability has really allowed us to have a DPI approach. And we're aspiring to invest a lot more in DPIs and DPGs in terms of creating an ecosystem approach towards solving such kinds of problems. But this is also slowly seeping into the other areas of work that we do. For example, we're currently engaged with the Ministry of Agriculture and Agricultural Transformation Institute for improving input voucher system. Yeah? But input voucher system alone does not really cater for the full support of packages needed for smallholder farmers and small-scale producers. So we're plowing back and saying, what else can we do? If we put together and invest in DPIs, what other added benefits can we bring in to such communities and target groups, which these DPIs will enable us? So it's helping us revisit our approach in terms of how we go into a community and what kind of comprehensive support we can work on. But here's an added advantage there. It is also helping us look at what innovative products and services that the private sector can provide in such an environment. So it's a sort of opening the door by investing and promoting DPIs.
Thank you so much. I think a lot to look forward to, and hopefully by the next time we gather, there will be a lot more progress and a lot more exciting things. So I will open up the floor to questions. We have 10 minutes. So yeah, any questions for the panelists?
It was fascinating to hear you say that manually you can enroll 2,000 people a day, but using the ID kits that are available now, it's reduced to 50 a day. So particularly when you're overwhelmed with 7,000 people, was it, I think you said? So that impact of that is obviously huge, isn't it? What do you think can be improved there? What are the key areas? Obviously, it needs to be faster, doesn't it? But are there particular areas?
Thank you. Remember, it's 50 per day per kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So we had 6 kits, and so basically 300 per day. Now, I think, of course, more kits would help, right? So that you can do more. But I think what we've been able to then do, because taking 1 month to register everyone was not, it was almost a violation of their rights, right? You're registered on a Monday and you take 30 days until you get a benefit, right? So what we then decided to do was, as you are registered and your account is open, to get paid immediately. So the normal protocol is that you need to register everybody and then you verify the lists, make sure that everybody's the right people, and you verify that this is the correct, and even the community verifies. So they can say, no, Sam shouldn't be on this list because he has a son in Addis who's bringing him money every month. He shouldn't be on this list. And this and that. So the community verifies. So now what we had to do to try and make sure that people get their benefits quickly is to register on the day. So the 300 on that day that are registered, right? Their bank accounts are opened immediately on that same day. And then the following day, after the community have agreed that these 300 are correct, while the next 300 are being registered, yesterday's 300 are being verified and paid. So the payments are now happening 300, 300, 300, and not waiting for all 7,000 to be registered before payments are done. That then brought about extra costs. Because by having one payment done for the 7,000, whatever number it is, you have one bullet cost. Now with having staggered payments, you have costs each time. So we had to count, so these are some of but we had to should we make people wait? Remember, these are displaced people, desperate. Wait for a month until they get the benefit, or let's just incur the extra costs and get them paid day in, day out. So 300 that registered today are paid tomorrow, and so forth and so on. That was the way we had to counter in the absence of additional biometric kits. Like I said, this problem of kits will be solved by mid-year, I believe, right? Because there's a number of procurements underway as we speak, and by many partners to improve the availability of kits in the market.
Thank you so much. Hi, guys. So I just wanted to ask Ibrahim, you mentioned that one of the challenges you faced is in terms of interoperability, even within UN agencies. So I wanted to ask if both of you, Sam and Ibrahim, if you have any initiatives to maybe start this integration amongst each other, as two of the first implementers of the digital ID within the Ethiopian context. So are there any initiatives in mind so far? Thank you.
Yes. So right off the bat, my response would be yes. But not only that, I think we, again, continually learn as we go. We have a one UN approach, and specifically the way UNCDF is set up is to serve as a catalytic entity. Our major role is to de-risk environments of this nature and then help others to come in by providing really a safe space for further investment. So there is multiple initiatives that we're thinking of, but this does not only look at refugee communities only. This is also looking at wherever social benefit and government transfer issues are there. Because as I said earlier, my prime concern as UNCDF is looking at financial service provision institutions are efficiently confident enough and efficiently set up in terms of innovation, in terms of finance, and then risk management as well, to be able to provide services at the first mile / last mile. So with that, we are really tagged to work with as many UN agencies as possible. And from this year's strategy, we are really expanding our outreach to work with all those entities that are working in these front lines to actually collaborate with us. And we provide the first loss role, whereby we go ahead and de-risk the innovation part from the financial service provision. One good case in point is what we're trying to do up north, and Saifu is my project manager for this, is in terms of post-conflict rehabilitation. Yeah, what is the role of identification in the financial service provision in post-conflict situations? And we're really intensively addressing this. It's an initiative we're piloting, and we aspire to expand this in partnership with other UN, as well as partner agencies, including the private sector.
From our perspective, of course, we're going to rely a lot on UNCDF because they are the more, what you call, technically-savvy agencies in the UN. So we will definitely. In fact, last night we were having a meeting with his colleagues discussing this issue. But one other thing I wanted to raise is that we also are very concerned and are trying to figure out what we do about the situation in social protection where we have multiple MISs, right? So, for example, there is a management information system for the rural PSMP, right? The 8 million people in the Ministry of Agriculture. We have another 1 million people registered under the urban PSMP in the Ministry of Urban and Infrastructure. Then you have about 800,000 people registered under social protection programming or humanitarian cash registered under the Ministry of Women and Social Affairs. And you have more, and then you have in the Ministry of Health over 4.5 million people registered under the Social Protection Community-Based Health Insurance Scheme. Okay. And then education is reminding me. So you can see all of these things. So we acknowledge that this is a big challenge, and to try and promote interoperability, but also we think that, and this is an initiative already underway being led by government, that these efforts lead towards a social registry of beneficiaries, right? And the process that is underway as it takes. But it's a long journey. There's a lot to do, but we will rely on our techie savvy guys to lead us and guide us on this one.
Okay, I will ask one question.
Sure. Go ahead. Go for it.
I think one thing we didn't talk about was more of the banking side. How do we incentivize private sector banks to be a partner with us in this journey?
It needs to be said as we stand, and we have, 35 banks in Ethiopia, and then many in the pipeline under registration to be certified and operational. As we stand, there is literally zero incentive for these banks to open services at the last mile. And this becomes even more exacerbated when you look at it from an agent perspective. Yeah? Again, agents are traders. They're doing this as part of their service. So unless the business is lucrative, there's literally no reason why they would do this. So this is where de-risking comes in. This is where incentivization comes in. But most importantly, this is where technology comes in. Yeah? So we want to continually promote what we call aggregation of services. Agent services at the last mile become very lucrative when there is a layering of various services. And this is where you can have a community of other service providers to come together in terms of using these agents. So I think we need to invest a lot more in that space, but also innovate that last mile part. Mind you, in countries like ours, we also have a project on what we call cash in, cash out. That ability and flexibility to to actually oscillate between digital and the analog cash system, it really is dependent upon the prevalence of service providers at the last mile. So we have to continually invest in there. We have to partner in there. And as Mina said, we have to work within the UN, but also closely within the government system to innovate in that layer of segment. But we also need to look at it from a technology perspective on how to make it more simpler and then help reduce the cost of providing service.
Okay, thank you so much to both my esteemed panelists here. And thank you all for your interest and your questions. Yeah, we can close the session now. Thank you so much.